Several ladies are in FileMaker because their fathers are developers and their fathers taught them the skill, kind of like passing down the family trade. And some of those ladies are now in positions to now run the company when their dad is retiring. So it's just neat to see the longevity, which is something that started with me with Clay's talk, how he was like the 15th employee of Claris. You know, my dad brought home an Apple IIe when I was in 8th grade. And so I've just had it all my life. And so it's kind of cool to see Claris has been there at that time too. And they're around, still growing, still changing and improving things, and not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, it's time for another episode of the FileMaker Devcast. I'm your host, Dan Smiley. Really excited to be coming to you today live from Claris Engage here at the Apple campus in Austin, Texas. And to talk to us, we have Clay Maeckel, one of the primary engineers on the FileMaker platform, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Clay, the senior employee, really. Is that the case?
Yeah, no, I joined Apple Computer right after college in 1986. Worked a year in like the Mac terminal section there, and then there's this big hubbub at Apple where companies were complaining that Apple was selling hardware and software, so Apple was going to split out all the software and created this company called Claris. So I was actually the 15th employee of Claris, and that was formed in '87.
I had no idea it was Apple.
Yes, yeah, it's been around a while. And then eventually, after Scully left and some other executive changes, they decided, no, we're going to keep the company. So then we got basically rolled back into the company as an independent subsidiary, and then eventually kind of more like a division side Apple at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I've been working. But actually, I was working on other products. Even when Claris bought FileMaker, I was still working on other things that ended up never shipping. But when they started doing the first version of the Windows version of FileMaker, because FileMaker was originally Mac only. Actually, we go further back, it was DOS only, but it was called Nutshell. But I could probably spend an hour talking about the history of that. But I started working on FileMaker with FileMaker 2 for the Windows version.
Did Claris purchase FileMaker, or was this an in-house development?
No, it was a purchase. There was a company called Nutshell in Boston. They were selling FileMaker and PowerPoint at the same time. Microsoft came through, they looked at the products, they wanted PowerPoint, but they didn't want FileMaker. So they bought PowerPoint, and then Claris bought FileMaker.
Oh. And then they had Access, and if they had just bought FileMaker.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, when Access came out, we were all scared. There's, Access is going to eat our lunch. But, and there's like Paradox. There's a whole bunch of personal database products that you can use on your own personal computer and stuff like that have all gone away by this point. It's us and Access, and they don't even push Access nearly as much as they do now.
No, it's not even part of the primary bundle download when you download the Office product.
Yeah, they push everyone to MySQL and Power Tools that they have. So,
right. Well, you've been releasing or involved in Claris FileMaker releases since version 2. In that time, what's been the most challenging release that you've worked through?
That was, I guess, really FileMaker 7 when we really redid the entire engine. In FileMaker 3, we threw in some relational capabilities because Access was coming up, and we said, we have to be a relational database to compete against Access. By the time and then we started thinking about, we wanted to have a join graph and be a lot more fancier, switch to Unicode. There's a whole bunch of changes we wanted to make. So there was a group of about 6 of us that were creating the Draco engine, and that we were going to base everything else on top of it. But they could keep the same type of form design. If you look at layout forms, they haven't, the whole process, the layout mode, the browse mode, preview mode, all that stuff was back in the FileMaker 2 days and stuff like that. But something different is that we didn't write a database engine first and then put a UI on top of it. We had a UI first and a workflow, and then we wrote a database engine to be optimized for that instead. But that took a while. That's one of the most painful points on customers was the transition from 6 to 7. But everyone made it through it, and now we're up to version 20 shipping right now. So.
Like the transition from Mac 9 to Mac 10.
Right, and then that was in there. And I know, like the first versions of FileMaker, written for this Motorola 68000 chip. Then it went to the PowerPC chip. Then it went to the Intel chip, and now we're on the Apple ARM chip again. And even with the Ubuntu, we're running on ARM. So I've gone through I've had to learn a lot of different assembly languages over the years. Because, well, I'm still old school enough that I actually look at what the compilers actually generate.
Right, turn on ARM. Am I going to be able to run FileMaker on a Raspberry Pi?
Actually, people do.
Really?
Yeah, no, I've seen the FileMaker server running on little Raspberry Pis with a Ubuntu running on it. You have a little mini server that you can fit in your purse if you want.
That's cool. I've got a Raspberry Pi project I'm working on. Maybe I'll have to change over to doing this. Look, in the features that are in FileMaker now, or the new features that have come out recently, what is your favorite, or what are you most excited about in the FileMaker?
I mean, at this conference, we've been announcing that we're working on AI stuff, but I'm kind of like I'm the old curmudgeon, saying, "Oh, AI." Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff that we're doing in FileMaker to update the engine. It's really working more with connectivity. I guess the most exciting area, I think there's a lot more that we can do between FileMaker and Claris Connect. And mainly, because we have our database engine, but people don't put everything in one database anymore, right? That was kind of, you wanted all your information in one place. Now, information is distributed between multiple locations nowadays. So our goal is to make that, to be able to talk to anything, if your data is in Salesforce, or maybe not an Excel spreadsheet, but other Microsoft products, or even homegrown products. I mean, schools that have school data in some ancient software products that we still need to talk to that and at least get the information out that we can move it back and forth. So I think the integration with Claris Connect and just with other things in general. I mean, when we first insert from URL, the script step that we've had for a long time, it's like the simple thing just to make a URL call and get data back. But now it's like one of the core script steps that everyone uses, because you can talk to any microservice out there. And if you talk to any microservice out there, you can almost do anything with it. Turn on a light bulb in a house or something like that by sending a little REST request to that device and stuff like that.
That's how I'm going to figure out how to keep an eye on the water level. Like,
sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. You can do that.
Sure.
You use that. Have you put your little Pi out there? Look at the things that run those FileMaker server on there. Then you can query it whenever you want to for the levels over multiple months.
There's a second Pi. I can find another Raspberry Pi.
I tried to use QuickBooks once for my little business, and you have to do everything the way that they exactly do it, stuff like that. And my father didn't want to do it that way. He said, "Okay, well, I'll sit down and write a little FileMaker." So I actually run our partnership using it generates the tax stuff and stuff like that. But it's all very non-standard for how a real accountant or anything like that would do it. But it's how my dad wanted to do it, so that was nice.
That's cool. So you use it yourself.
Oh, yeah. I have another guy that was at the dog shows all the time saying, well, instead of doing it by paper, can I write a little, app that can run on Android and Go that can, make the API calls into FileMaker server to get the run orders and stuff like that, so everyone with their phone out there can bring out and find out where they're running during the days and, who they follow and stuff like that. So I actually, have other people now communicate with the database too.
So for Android, then, are you doing it in WebDirect?
No, I'm not doing that part. He's actually this other friend of mine is actually he's writing custom apps for Android and iOS, but he's using the FileMaker Data API to access the data inside FileMaker.
How do new features get into FileMaker?
Well, we have some pretty big databases of feature requests over the last 25 years, I guess. So we have a large list of things to pull from, and then we hear what we rank them as we hear multiple people requesting the same things. Their count goes in there. and things that are security or performance related are getting, they get an extra bump in the priority. So we tend to pick those things first, and then features that people really want. And sometimes, like when I was at a Pause on Error conference like 2 years ago, we was out there and we were just sitting around a fire afterwards talking about problems and saying, well, what, I would ask them, saying, why did we did this? And they say, no, why did we do that? And we actually kind of came up with the on window transaction script trigger as one way to do auditing and syncing and stuff like that. That would solve their problem. So sometimes it's just coming to these conferences, talking to us, and I have an idea. I had a conversation with a guy from Switzerland yesterday or 2 days ago, and he came up with a pretty interesting idea. Well, actually, his idea, I'm really careful, but it spawned something else with me thinking, well, what if I did this? And he said, well, yeah, no, that would probably be better. And it's this interaction back and forth between the customer and us is really helps.
So sometimes it's just, oh, really? I can fix that.
Yeah.
And then you go.
And one thing is that sometimes the customers will say, "I want this," and say, "Is that what you really want?" The better thing that if you're giving us feature ideas is tell me why you want that feature, not how to do that feature. Because we know why you want to do it, we may come up with a better way to solve the why, and not just do this. Just add this checkbox here. But saying, well, what if we fix this other thing? That solves the problem, and then everyone can take advantage of it.
Like that. So, last question that I have, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but what is FileMaker actually written in? C, C++, Visual C?
The base engine, well, the first version of FileMaker was written in Pascal, but when we started porting to Windows, that was one of my main jobs, was starting to move everything from Pascal to C and C++. So the Draco engine is in C++. When you start getting to the different GUIs, we tend to then have we use the language that are used to help generate the dialogues and stuff like that. So on Windows, we're using C#. On Mac, we were using Objective-C, but now Apple is moving to Swift as development environment. So as we come up with new dialogues and stuff like that, we're starting to do more work in Swift. And Go is still pretty much Go is a mixture of Swift and Objective-C too, but with the product with as many dialogues, as much UI as we have, it's really almost impossible to switch everything to the new format, to new APIs at once. But we're starting. So the goal is to move everything Apple-based to Swift and everything else goes to C# and mechanisms that they use there.
That's neat. Thanks for answering. Appreciate it. Clay, that's all the time we have for this. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes out of your time here at Engage to talk to us.
Yeah, it was great talking with you.
Well, it's great to have the team all on screen. Now that we've had that great interview with Clay Maeckel, I was really excited to get an opportunity to talk with him, asking him questions like, what's the software platform you actually write Claris FileMaker in? And that was kind of nerdy of me. But it was interesting to hear what he was most excited about in the product releases, and he seemed very engaged in the capabilities of Claris Connect. And I know John went to one of those sessions. So let's start with John around the room. Based on what Clay said, what are your thoughts on Claris Connect, and what excited you?
Yeah, it's great to see. Claris, committed to Connect and making it better over time. One of my favorite things I saw at the conference was actually a slide at the keynote showing the new Claris Studio, Claris Connect, and Claris FileMaker icons all next to each other as the Claris platform. I liked that visual. But for Connect, the aspect that I quite liked was the release of the connector for FileMaker Server Admin. I'm looking forward to playing with that FileMaker Server Admin connector and doing some workflow automation related to server management. It's one that I'm quite looking forward to. I also enjoyed quite a bit the session on using Claris Connect with AWS and seeing some of the flows that people are created around creating around AWS.
Yeah, I was at that session with you. It was kind of complicated in the way they were using the S3 storage and doing validation. And I look forward to being able to get a hold of those slides and see that graphic, because I'm going to have to stare at it and ponder it for a while. I think it's a 2 pot of coffee project to figure out what he was talking about. So,
Yeah,
Zandon, you had some comments as well on FileMaker Connect. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, there was some pretty exciting stuff. I think we do a lot of web app projects. We have several of them, and so specifically, Claris Studio is starting to look like it. As soon as we get the next release, it looks like we're going to have some really cool tools in there to be able to fill some of our web app needs. And as far as Claris Connect goes, and John can touch on this a little bit more, for being able to do some really cool stuff. I saw a demo where they were using it to push basically for server management. It's really awesome for us to be able to do, right? Where you could use FileMaker to control your server because it's able to use the Claris connector to connect to the server and turn off the server, send out notifications on the server, and then also push notifications to other apps like Slack. So there's some pretty fun stuff in Claris Connect that I'm excited to get to explore and play with as the next version comes out.
John, you had another thought?
Oh, I was just going to mention, we've been using S3 for a while to kind of as the next step in managing container data for FileMaker apps, and so nice to see what somebody else is doing with Claris Connect and S3 there, and also really interesting. We haven't used the AWS SNS service. It was interesting to see in that presentation, looking at that a little bit and how that presenter was using Claris Connect and the SNS server.
Yeah, both the SMS server and the AWS email both operated through Connect. Looked really interesting. But we have a similar implementation. I'll turn to Kate. Kate and maybe some other people, maybe Jacob worked on this for me, but we have a implementation of Twilio for SMS that we use Connect for. I had put it together initially just using the Twilio API, but I could only get it to push messages out. I couldn't get it to pull messages back in. And Kate said, I think Connect could do this. And once again, I turned to the experts. What'd you do, Kate? How'd that work out?
I think that's one of the perfect use cases of Claris Connect when you need data exchanged in real time. So it has that benefit of the webhook, which of course is that's the key that allows the data exchange in real time. And then we're able to receive those messages and then do whatever we want in FileMaker, input it and take whatever steps we want. So, that was the perfect use case, I think, for Claris Connect there.
Yeah, and it's been working great. Does anybody else have any thoughts on Claris Connect before we jump into some of the other things that Clay had to say?
I'm getting ready to do with Studio, because since I'm like very, very, very beginning developer skills, and being a developer is not my kind of role at Portage Bay, but I was really eager to learn more about it, where I can help with some of the lighter things, perhaps. Let the developers do the heavy lifting, but I can help in with smaller projects or smaller views or smaller connections that our clients would need to see. So that was interesting that that's accessible for someone who's not a full-on, long-time developer.
Yeah, it looked really interesting in what I didn't realize until the session, that it is a completely separate standalone product that you can build a deployable solution without leaving Studio, but that you can use your underlying FileMaker tables from other solutions to drive it. And that's very exciting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one cool thing I saw at the
go ahead, Russell.
Go ahead.
No.
One thing I was saying I was excited to see was there was a cool demo with Studio of doing like charting options and like data visualization. That was really exciting to see, because we have a couple projects here where we had to do some charting, and it'd be cool to kind of see how Studio would compare. And yeah, it's going to be exciting to have the new release and getting, testing it with Connect and getting everything tied together and orchestrated together will be exciting for sure.
Let's go ahead and show that screen you got there. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah. We have the keynote slides here, so I wanted to show some of the stuff that Claris was talking about. So this is the current views in Claris Studio, and all these can be made public, right? So that's a real advantage to using Claris Studio and designing something that's web-based that you can share publicly. Nobody has to have a FileMaker or a Claris ID. And then this is a preview of the new custom view, which is what they're working on now, which is set to be released in this summer.
I'm super excited about that. I have 2 use cases in mind, and I wish I could just start doing it right this minute.
And then I liked that they went over and talked about, some of the case studies and the examples of how people were already using this and integrating it between FileMaker and Claris Studio.
Yeah, so this one's actually deployed in the wild, right? This solution, because it said that in the testing platform you couldn't use it for production, but there's some people who have got it out in the wild now.
It seems like it, even though it is still in beta. So I guess they're testing it with a real use case, but they're testing the beta product. But yeah, here's more views of how that looks. So I think it's pretty nice. And then, I thought it was great that they were making their product backlog more public, so we can see what they're working on. This is a native web app with views as components, nested views. I mean, that's going to be pretty powerful stuff.
But I like that they said that they were using it for project management within the department, within the Claris Studio department. So they're eating their own dog food.
As they should.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Here's the Claris Connect piece, right? So this is the building. So the internal facing solution, FileMaker, external facing solution, Claris Studio, and then the external data sources, Claris Connect. I think that's kind of how everything's fitting together. He talked about custom connectors.
Yeah, those were pretty cool. Do you have any other examples of Connect projects that Portage Bay has done?
We did a good one as we were working with the custom connector ETS or beta program. We put together a custom connector for ZotoSign, which is the digital signing service that we use internally, and so we're using that as part of our workflow for signing documents with clients. Using that custom connector that we created to do it. So that's been pretty interesting. I think that's an area where we need to do some more work on custom connectors.
Yeah, that custom connector is a huge opportunity where, Claris wasn't providing connectors to certain endpoints. And now that we can do that and use Claris Connect to do that, gives us a whole lot more opportunity in a space. And we're not relying on them to build that connector, right? So that's pretty exciting. So we can connect with any type of service that has a REST API, as well as some other things. So opens up a whole lot of
it also makes it very modular the way they built it. So you can use those custom connectors, with anybody else's. I mean, a bunch of different applications. So
it was interesting to hear Clay talk about the personal projects that he does within FileMaker. So he's not only coding the product, but he's using it to manage a dog show for friends of his, and wrote accounting software that his family business uses. So that's pretty cool. I know that I've got, I guess, what I would consider some personal FileMaker projects going. Does anybody else within the group have an example of personal project they use FileMaker for?
Years ago, I made this solution. I imported my music library into a solution and made a small interface just I could check off which bands. I've got a massive music collection, And this was a way for me to check off which bands I've seen live, because as I get older, my memory doesn't quite remember. And I have a little memoir box of like ticket stubs, from 30 years of going to shows. I guess 25, but so now I just have a little database that I can check which ones I've seen live and how many I've seen live. I should add a ranking system though, because that's one thing my memory is losing. How good these shows were, actually.
I've got a database that I'm using that's managing the clients for my personal business. And really all I did is modify it because I went to the Claris store or whatever it was and downloaded a free app that required almost no tweaking to do what I needed to do. And so it, keeps track of task hours and generates invoices appropriately. And it's super cool.
I wrote one a number of years ago and still use it for managing a family vacation rental we have. So it helps me keep track of when it's booked, and in particular helps me get our rental agreement signed. It's not a very pretty app. It's like that old saying about the cobbler has poor shoes. I forget the exact saying.
Right.
It doesn't have a very good user interface, but it gets the job done.
Right. And in your personal app, you're willing to have some workarounds that you wouldn't allow to exist if it was going to be used for a client. Like, I'll just go to the layout view and I can update. It's fine. It'll be fine. I don't need to write more code.
It's a great, super simple. I mean, FileMaker excels at the simple use case of I just need to email a form to somebody, a customized form to somebody, and that little rental calculator app that I wrote does that. Is that great?
Well, let's go to the conference in a broader look and go around the room for what each of you was most excited about. And I'm going to start with Jacob, since you're up in the upper left-hand corner. What jumped out at you? Did you walk away going, God, that's neat?
I went to a lot of web integration stuff. So like the focus was more, I guess, third party, but also kind of like, just the web architecture and workflows that kind of mingle with FileMaker. And one of them that stood out was Jake Johnson, I believe it was, Angel City. And he did a comparison with WebDirect, a full-blown, full-stack web app, and Better Forms. And he just like did a full comparison how they stacked up. And I was actually surprised to see how Better Forms compared to starting from scratch. So I learned a bunch of stuff I didn't know Better Forms was kind of capable of, at least kind of seeing it from that point of view. So it was pretty cool.
So Better Forms, is that a FileMaker plugin or is that something else? What is that?
So it's basically a web app. So Charles Dell built this application that's based on a bunch of different frameworks for the web, but it's tightly integrated with FileMaker to where they're kind of communicating. I forget the direct means that they communicate on. I think it's SQL, or maybe it's not SQL. But basically, this structure supports a full-blown web app, and he's made it in such a fashion that it's easier for developers to get started because a lot of things are already built. So you're not building from scratch. It's kind of like retaining the FileMaker model where we don't want to, write all of our own CSS. We just want to move objects around. We don't want to write structure framework. We just, we like visual UIs, and it's kind of that approach, And what he wants to do with it looks, just like FileMaker. You're moving stuff on the layout. Same thing. So I would compare it to Studio or even designing layouts in FileMaker.
So how did WebDirect stack up? Where did it fall?
Surprisingly, where thought it was going to be. But then again, like it's like he wasn't saying that it was a bad thing. It's just it has its like specific use case. So it depends on like, you know, how you're trying, what kind of web app you're trying to build, who you're trying to support.
Gotcha. Zandon, what jumped out at
John,
you?
Oh.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish that thought.
I was going to say John went to that one too. I didn't know if you had any thoughts about
I'll
that.
wait my turn. I'll wait my turn.
No worries.
I'll wait my turn. I was gonna talk about that too, so I'll wait my turn.
Okay. Zandon.
Yeah, there were two big ones for me. One was the AI features that are coming out with the next release, right? Some really cool stuff about being able to basically talk with your database using LLMs, and the other one has to do with sort of it's a bit new, and I think people maybe don't know about it, but being able to do embeddings, vector embeddings for your documents, and then you can have chat with your documents as well as RAG support on the server. So there's some pretty exciting stuff coming out for FileMaker in regards to AI that's just going to make some really cool opportunities for interacting with the data in FileMaker. Ronnie Rios had a really cool demo where he basically was chatting with his document, so he could ask questions and it would respond back with and it would say it didn't know if it didn't have reference to the question you were asking and it wasn't available in the documents, but it could answer questions relevant to the documents, which is profound, right? To be able to talk with your actual documents. So talking with your data is a big AI forward leap. There were a few things on the AI front. The other part that I thought was really cool, Proofgeist's David Ramsey had a great session on FM perception and FM comparison. And they're both tools that I use and love. And so seeing some of the cool stuff that he was doing in there were awesome. One of the things that I think Joe already knew about, but like I didn't know about, like using FM perception, you can actually copy some of the stuff directly out of the DDR and then paste it into FileMaker. So as you're sort of exploring your solution, the DDR in FM perception and getting an overview of all the different things that are going on in the solution, being able to select a portion and copy it, and then if you had another solution you needed to paste it into, just paste it in there, was pretty profound. So there's some fun stuff. And the FM comparison, providing some pipelines for doing FM comparison in order to manage versioning. And I think that's going to be really helpful for us as a company to be able to set up some automated tasks to be able to create DDRs from our FileMaker solutions, right? Those give us a timestamp of what the solution was like at that place. And then do that periodically before we do a deployment and before we make some changes, after we make the changes. And then we can have a really clear line of like, this was in this one, this was in this one, and what's the difference between the two? And then generate reports to be able to share with the clients on what has changed since the last, what are the new features that we've done, or what bug fixes have we done? And it helps in that documentation. So there's some really cool stuff about FM comparison, FM perception that they had in the presentation. It was pretty cool. David Ramsey, I'm more and more as I talk to him, I'm really, impresses me incredibly. They did talk about another one called FM Layout Lens, which is pretty cool, and it's free, but it's fun. It gives you this ability to paste layouts in FileMaker and then look at them in this exploded view, so you can see all the different layers in this sort of three-dimensional space, and then dial through your layers. So if you have complicated layouts and you're like struggling to comprehend, well, where's this object and where's this object? It's a pretty cool tool, kind of fun, very visual. So yeah, pretty impressive. Those are pretty much my main two takeaways that I was really excited about, if I just had to pick a couple.
It sounds like we have a new guest that we need on the show.
Definitely. Yeah.
You should reach out to him and get his availability.
Yeah.
All right, so you have homework. That's great. John,
Yeah, I would echo a bit of what Jacob was talking about. We started using FM Better Forms a couple 2.5 years ago, and have done a few projects in it. But I had some. I don't know where I came up with them, but I had some preconceptions about what we could do with it that I don't think were correct. And so, seeing what another developer's doing with it, and learning about that stuff, kind of opened my eyes a little bit about how we might be using it in other ways. And I'm really excited about looking at some different clients and seeing where we might be able to do some more Better Forms projects. So that was really one good one. And another web one, there was a session on web app architecture that went through that development firm's methodologies for doing full stack web apps in this case, in a variety of different circumstances, different requirements. And we've been doing a bunch of that work in the last few years, and seeing how another firm was choosing to do it, and completely independently of us, coming up with a lot of the same methodologies and workarounds for putting FileMaker apps on the web was really interesting to see that a couple of different developers running in parallel tracks ended up roughly in the same place. We don't talk with other development firms on an everyday basis, so I don't know how they're choosing to do things necessarily, and so that was great to see how they were doing it, and to see that we had both kind of come up with similar methodologies for dealing with for some different FileMaker situations. Those are two of my favorites. I also really appreciated some of the AI sessions. I've been looking at AI from a higher level and using it a bit in my own work, but I haven't been involved in the FileMaker AI ETS so far. So seeing some of that from an educational standpoint was really great, and I'm really interested to see what we're going to be able to do with that in our apps over the next year.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I love that they had some custom functions that are going to make it easier for us to integrate these large language models. That's super cool. Kate, you were the only one who actually gave a presentation at Claris. You carried the flag for the company. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I sat there. I enjoyed it. I got some photos to share.
I know, Dan. I enjoyed having you in the audience. I told everybody else, oh no, you don't have to listen to me because you can listen to me any old time. But it was, again, it's always an honor to be able to speak at a conference like that. So I was happy to be there and to represent Portage Bay, and I talked about, as I was promoting on here, workflow automation, and did a similar thing, comparing 3 different pathways. So I was comparing FileMaker, Claris Connect, and Microsoft Power Automate, and it was fun. I enjoyed giving the presentation. I learned just as much from it, and got some good insights after the presentation from other people as well. So I'm always happy to be out there and researching and sharing my knowledge, which I think is just as important. I went to some, I enjoyed the Claris Studio session by Claris that I went to. That was, they did more of a deep dive into the custom views. And again, like echoing what everybody is saying here, it's just really exciting to see, because I think it's the missing piece that we've kind of been waiting for, of making really more web native FileMaker or Claris experience possible. And I think that's the avenue, and it seems to be really maturing. So that's a good and positive sign. And I just, I really appreciated the transparency that Claris was, really putting forth and talking about the different ETS and how to get involved and how to try things out. And it was actually interesting. So I think, we had all reported some feature requests with Claris Connect a while back when we were testing something with the Claris Studio connector and Claris Connect, and things that weren't, there was a field naming problem. So the field names weren't obvious that were coming back. They were these generic field names. And so it was really difficult to match. So if you wanted to match your fields, it was like, well, I can't do this, is too difficult. And actually, yeah, Louis de la Park came up to me and said, Kate, I took your feedback and I want to show you what we've done. And that was really exciting, to feel like if you do raise an issue and so there's something that you want to be done, like they are listening, and you just kind of have to make your voice heard, and then, getting that feedback. And again, that's the beauty of a conference, is we wouldn't maybe get that over, he may not have scheduled a virtual meeting, but when you run into people and you're out there and you're connecting, I feel like it's such a valuable experience to get those small, little, tiny conversations that are really valuable. So that's my input.
Well, that's great. Well, Russell, what jumped out at you? What were you excited about?
Yeah, there were a few sessions that were really, really exciting to see. One of them, the first one was this OAuth one from Brian at Proofgeist. He had shown this like OAuth code builder to kind of help, facilitate the OAuth process, because it is a very painful kind of process sometimes to do OAuth integration, and they kind of, it was nice to see them kind of also echo that and say, like, we know it's difficult, so we tried, they built this add-on to help facilitate the OAuth process, which is really cool to see. And I'm hoping to I want to hopefully use that someday, when I think they said that it'll be put on the marketplace here soon. And then another one that was really fun, there was a Heather McHugh from Harmonic. She had done a UI UX one, and gave some really cool processes on kind of requirements gathering, and she told some really cool stories of how she was able to travel to pretty cool places to kind of help see her product kind of in the wild get used, and then it was helped her to kind of see it being used in person to help gather those requirements, and she was able to take that back and make it even better for clients. So it was cool to kind of get those processes from her, and will be helpful for us for sure to gain that better insight for our clients. And then another one I went to was Jeremy Brown. He did his web viewer deep dive, and it was we've taken his methodologies here at Portage Bay to do our web viewer integrations when we build kind of our JavaScript tools. And so it was cool to meet him for the first time and talk to him, and kind of see those workings kind of being used in person. It was really cool to kind of pick his brain for a little bit. I know me and Jacob and Joe, we talked to him for a bit after his session, and we were able to kind of talk to him for a bit and pick his brain a little bit more on his integration. So that was really fun. And then another one that was it was the last session of the whole conference, actually. It was Peter from Proofgeist. He did his TileMaker session. That was kind of his way of kind of improving his productivity with his kind of tactile sort of Kanban board, physical board with these little domino tiles to kind of write your little small tasks, and to kind of move them in your own little kind of columns for your day to day. And that was definitely a fun way to end the conference. It was kind of lighthearted and a fun session. So yeah, overall it was a really good time. Text everybody. It was my first conference with everybody, and yeah, it was a great experience to go out and meet everybody and see all those sessions and make those new connections with people, and to meet some fun, interesting people for sure. So yeah.
That's awesome. This team works together a lot, but this was the first time many of you had ever seen each other in person. Yeah. So yeah, it's just the reality of the world we work in now. But a big thank you to John and Kate for bringing the whole team together. That was a lot of fun, and especially the idea of getting this really large Airbnb so the whole team could be together. That was neat. Well, let's go to our intrepid producer for the podcast, Brandon. You held down one of the booths, but did you get a chance to see any of the sessions? What jumped out at you?
No, I didn't go to the sessions. I was just there to be at the booth so that the other women could be at the sessions who had signed up for the conference. But seeing everybody in person. One thing I thought was funny is we all had to compare height, see how tall everybody was, because you never know just seeing people through Zoom. And I seeing people in person, meeting people from years, other people in FileMaker that I've known previously, to just see them again and reconnect. But then to meet the ladies, I was at the WIT-FM booth. I don't know if we already said that. And just people come in and sit down and chat, have a little break. It was neat to see a lot of guys come in too. Sometimes they'd look at the door, they'd see the sign, and they just kind of skitter on past. But then some guys would come in and say, I've got ladies in my company, and my company wouldn't exist without us all working together and collaborating. And how can I support your group? And how can I support them? And what do y'all need? Those were great conversations. Several ladies are in FileMaker because their fathers are developers and their fathers taught them the skill, kind of like passing down the family trade. And some of those ladies are now in positions to now run the company when their dad is retiring. So it's just neat to see the longevity, which is something that started with me with Clay's talk about longevity, with how he was like the 15th employee of Claris. You know, my dad brought home an Apple IIe when I was in 8th grade. And so I've just had it all my life. And so it's kind of cool to see Claris has been there that time too. And they're still around, still growing, still changing and improving things, and not going anywhere anytime soon. So it was neat.
Well, that's
and
great.
one of the desserts was vegan and gluten-free and delicious.
Sweet. I can't imagine why any guy wouldn't want to go to the booth that was just full of women.
Right.
Where else would you want to go? And stickers and chocolate.
We had tattoos, chocolate, tattoos, stickers, all kinds of bling.
There you go. Just no Diet Coke. That's what kept him out. So, Joe, what jumped out at you?
A few things. The FMS improvements they're making, I'm really excited about that. It's good to hear. You know, they've made a number of improvements to the FileMaker server platform over the years, and I think that the fact they're really looking to make micro improvements to perform, catching memory leaks, before they occur. Just using additional tools that a lot of other frameworks have implemented, and really making that the server better altogether. So they're making improvements to WebDirect. They're really just they're doing a good job. I appreciate that. One of the other sessions I went to was Todd Weller's Get What's New, and highly recommend it. He really goes into depth on every. Am I off screen? There we go. No,
you're good. No, you're fine.
He really goes into depth of all the new functions since version 20, and he's just a great presenter altogether. I'm looking at my notes. Of course, AI was massive. I kind of did one of those, so I drove down from Omaha, Nebraska, and with the purpose of pulling like a matrix upload and listening to 10 hours of podcasts on the way down. And it was intense. And I got a lot of really good out of it, some really good ideas. But after the conference, just seeing how they're going to be incorporating large language models. Some of the demos that Louis and Ronnie did were really like eye-opening, just to see real-world implementations. And of course, that I'm kind of reeling off of that Rabbit OS demo. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see that, but the Rabbit OS device and demo was one of the cooler things I've seen in a while in the AI realm. So I'm thinking on after the conference, what really engages AI and FileMaker in the same space? Well, engages. I shouldn't use that word. Sorry, bad dad pun. There we go.
You need to work it in like 5 more times. Just keep working it in. We're keeping account.
Right. It says engage.
Yeah.
But the small movements towards AI and making small steps in integrating such a large tool I think that's where we're really going to see improvements in the industry as a whole. But in the FileMaker realm of encompassing Connect and Studio and using AI to move things around, get information, semantic search was huge. I really liked seeing that. So there was a lot to gain from this conference. This, to be honest, was one of my favorite conferences because everybody was all in one space. We could interact so easily. There was just a lot to take in, and hanging out with all my coworkers, of course. That was just a lot of fun. So that's really my main takeaways.
Kate, did you want to share your screen again? I see you're playing with it over there.
Yeah, I was scrolling through. I wasn't sure if it would get through in the edit, but I was as Joe was talking about some of the AI stuff, I was just pointing to the slides that had to do with some of the AI stuff they were showing at the keynote.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It makes me look forward to the release of the next FileMaker that's going to have some of that capability built into it. So I can
Yeah, for sure.
log into my ChatGPT subscription. Well, that's about all the time we have to review Claris Connect or Claris Engage or Claris whatever the heck. Anybody have any final statements they want to make? I'll cut that part out. Claris won't like that. Yeah, Zandon.
I wanted to, I didn't mention Joe Simpson when I was talking about FM comparison and FM perception, and I was talking about David Ramsey and how awesome he is. Joe Simpson he's the UI designer for all of those apps, and he's really cool and awesome. So I didn't want to leave him out since I was talking about it. So I wanted to just sneak that in there. So he got recognized for being part of that team.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know if everybody has their trading cards made, but it sounds like Proof is going to be doing this more often, and so start collecting now because we're going to build in some rarity on these things.
Yeah, when we're on episode 250, you'll be looking back on those cards, right? Remember back in 2024?
And the one thing that Clay said jumped out, where he said when you put in your feature requests and they're listening to them and prioritizing them, but he said to tell the why. Don't just say, I would like this button here, but he says they really want to know the why. Why do you want this? Because they might have other ways to incorporate that multiple people are saying. So that was interesting.
That's
a good point.
Good point.
I want to just remind everybody, if you missed Engage, you can still go to the Claris website, go to their page on Engage. You can still buy the virtual package and see all the videos of all of the sessions. I know I have a bunch of videos to go back and watch myself.
So that's a really good point. Yeah. How do we go back, since those of us that were in person, where do we go to get those videos? Anybody know?
You just go to Claris's website, go to the Engage page, and you can still buy the virtual conference package. It's $99.
Oh, so it didn't come with the subscription. We have to buy that separately.
No.
Oh no, I think as people who already
they're accessible.
Yeah, we get it for free. But if you didn't attend in person and you still want to watch the videos, you can buy the package. But we all get it for free because we already ponied up the box.
Yeah, perfect. All right, great. All right, well, thank you everybody for taking the time out of their day to review our Claris Engage session. It was great to hang out with all of you. It's all the time we have. You know what I'm going to say? Get back to work.
Get back to work.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you for spending your time with us at the FileMaker Devcast today. We hope you found something useful, something thought-provoking, and something to take into your own development approach. Things that help you to be more productive and to allow you and your team to get more done in less time. Find us online at portagebay.com and filemakerdevcast.com, and also on social media at FM Devcast and Portage Bay. Let us know if we can help you or your company with modernizing your approaches and streamlining your workflow. We look forward to seeing you at the next Devcast.